Bill Harrison's unit was set up in the mountains about 60 miles to the west. As the troops at the reservoir were fighting for their lives, the remaining Chinese forces attacked along the main line of resistance. The beleaguered United Nations troops fell back. In order to support the retreating friendly forces, Harrison was ordered to a position on the other side of the Chongchan River at Kunu Ri. Their mission was to stop enemy forces from sweeping behind the retreating troops that had to travel through a 6-mile mountain pass. Enemy soldiers occupied most of the ridges along the road.
Vehicles were burning, stopped, disabled, burning, blocking the road until they could be shoved off the road, slowed everything down, and it was almost, you might say it was bumper-to-bumper traffic. We were in the rear, last in the column with the headquarters. And of course, all artillery was firing upon the enemy there on those ridges. And this went on into the night. The dead were being loaded on the trucks, of course, along with the wounded. And the Chinese were still firing on those wounded, and we were firing at gun flashes, you know. We couldn't see except for the gunfire, and that's what we fired on it in the night.
The battlefield conditions proved to be too much for Harrison's unit.
Ammunition was all gone, and most of the small arms ammunition was expended. My battery was down to about 35 at that time. So we got orders to destroy all of our equipment, guns, and everybody would be on their own to try to get out of there because we were completely surrounded.
Harrison recalls the moment when the grim orders were given.
Sorry, men, he said, but we'll have to be on our own. That's the best way possibly. We can't go as a group. We have to try to filter through enemy to get out of here.
He set out for safety with 2 other soldiers. They were headed south with a large contingent of retreating men. Their path took them past the North Korean capital city of Pyongyang. One of the trio had been injured during the fight, and he eventually succumbed to his wounds. Harrison and the remaining soldier continued south.
We're crawling along in those ditches mainly, and over our own people. That's how I was able to find some ammunition for my rifle. Picked up some dog tags. Just kept going.
The Battle of the Chosan Reservoir raged for 17 days. The evacuation from the port at Hungnam took another 2 weeks, with the last units leaving on Christmas Day. At the reservoir alone, there were an estimated 18,000 UN troops listed as casualties. 8,000 of them suffered from frostbite. The losses for the People's Volunteer Army are believed to have been 20,000 dead and 30,000 injured by frostbite. The United Nations troops that survived the ordeal at the reservoir refer to themselves as the Chosen Frozen and the Chosen Few. For those troops who had fought to the west of the reservoir, thousands were killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. The remaining soldiers, including Harrison, regrouped in Seoul. As the war spread across the country, some local citizens chose to stay in their homes, but millions were uprooted. A steady stream of refugees moved opposite to the flow of UN troops. Bill Harrison encountered the long lines heading away from the battlefield.
They were always moving south. Never, even in North Korea, no one moved north. We took an area in North Korea, the people were going south. I remember one instance. This line of refugees was moving through, and 3 of them broke from the refugee groups and started moving towards us. Obviously, one of them was a male. Yelled at them to stop. They didn't. And in Korean, they didn't. Kept coming. The male had to be shot. Turns out he was an enemy soldier. Fortunately, I mean, relieves your conscience a little bit.